We know that obsessive compulsive disorder can be managed. I wish that I could say that it would go away and that we have a cure. But instead of focusing on that, let's talk about how to learn to live with OCD so that OCD isn't in the driver's seat and you are instead driving through your life. And OCD, hopefully a very, very back row passenger that just doesn't get very much in the way anymore. My name is Dr. Patrick McGrath. I'm the Chief Clinical Officer for NOCD. If you've seen some of our longer formats on the Get to Know OCD podcast, hopefully you've subscribed to our NOCD YouTube channel or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. But we like to do some shorter form educational content. And today we're talking about OCD across the lifespan and the way that it may manifest itself throughout lives. Now, there are many OCD subtypes, and any and all of them could potentially occur throughout any of the lifespans. But there are some that are probably more likely to occur at certain times than others, or there are times that OCD might rear its head more than others. OCD in really young children is not all that common, but it isn't to say that it doesn't exist. There are definitely people who have OCD very young. I've seen it even manifest itself originally as food can't touch each other, or my siblings aren't allowed to touch my stuff because they're contaminated. Fears around those types of things are pretty common. There's even this notion of what we call PANS, pediatric autoimmune neuropsychological syndromes, where individuals may get something like strep throat or Lyme disease or some kind of autoimmune system that has a negative impact on some areas of the brain. And there seem to be antibodies that can cross the blood-brain barrier and even attack certain parts of the brain, mimicking OCD or even tics or Tourette's syndrome. If you see a sudden onset of OCD, literally almost overnight, or of some tics or Tourette-like experiences, please reach out to a therapist and a pediatrician right away, because there are interventions that can be done both psychologically and medically to help out. Adolescence would be one of the first times that we see a spike in the development of OCD. Maybe that transition from grade school or middle school to high school, it's a stressor. And we know OCD loves a stressor. So when there's a stressor, it's a chance for OCD to jump in and say, hey, this appears to be rather stressful. I have solutions for stressors. They're called compulsions. Why don't you do one? It will be very helpful. It's not very helpful. We don't want compulsions to be done, right? But OCD is very, very convincing. And OCD feeds off of compulsions. So there will be obsessions thrown at you. And again, an obsession is a thought, an image, or urge that we might find to be unwanted, inappropriate, intrusive, and it leads us to do these compulsions, which are mental behaviors or physical behaviors, as a way to try to neutralize whatever the obsession is. In adolescence, there are many, many ways that you will see OCD start to show up. It could be things like, if I sit in this seat and then I get up and someone else sits there, they might become pregnant because what if I left something on the seat? You will see issues with contamination. You will see issues potentially around fears of issues with sexual orientation or even existential concerns. You might even see fears of harm coming to self or others. Anything that happens in this stage of life where people start questioning themselves, their identities, their orientations, the way that they live in the world, OCD will come in and say, maybe there's something really bad or awful or terrible about this. Compulsions are necessary. We must come in and we must do compulsions in order to try to keep everything in line. Because if you don't do the compulsions, these things or these concerns that you have might actually come true. Some terrible, awful thing might actually happen, right? You might then not be who you think you are. You might actually become someone who's very dangerous. You might actually change who you are in the world or in the way that you approach it. you could cause horrible, awful things to happen and be responsible without even knowing that you're responsible for it. When you get through adolescence, there's another spike then where OCD seems to appear, which is early adulthood. Now we're leaving high school, we're getting into college or apprenticeships. Again, we're moving out from home for a lot of people. We're going out on our own. And this is, again, a stressful time for a lot of people. And OCD comes in and says, another stressful time. Well, let's do some more compulsions to be able to help you through these stressful times. Now, guess what? Doing compulsions adds more stress to your life. It doesn't make it better. But OCD tries to hide that fact very well and says, no. Truly, it is the compulsions that are keeping everything together. And if you were to stop doing the compulsions, everything would just fall apart. So trust me, it's best to do compulsions. That's the message of OCD always, 100%. I've never met someone with OCD who said, my OCD told me it would be okay to take a break from compulsions this week. Nope, doesn't work that way. It's just not how it goes. So now we'll question all sorts of things as we get older, right? Who am I attracted to? Why am I attracted to them? What does that say about me as a person? How can I live in a world knowing that there are questions that philosophers have debated for thousands of years, but we still don't have an answer to it? I've got to develop the answer to it. How can I move forward? What if I'd done something in some way to be harmful to people, and maybe I have an apprenticeship, but I can't leave the job because I have to keep checking it over and over to make sure it's just right? Because if someone moves into this building that I've been working on, and let's say I didn't tighten that pipe enough and a little bit of gas leaks out and someone lights a cigarette and now the building blows up, that's all my fault. So I'm going to keep tightening this joint over and over again until it feels just right. But sometimes it never gets to the point of being just right. In OCD, it almost always seems to be just wrong. If you're attempting to satisfy OCD, that's not going to happen. OCD is unsatisfiable. So I don't know if that's a real word. I think I made it up. I don't know, but I like it. And if it's unsatisfiable, well, there's no way to give OCD everything that it wants, but it will keep telling you to try to do so. As we get into middle adulthood, there may be themes around family, right? Now we're at a point where there could be children, nieces or nephews. What if I were to harm them? What if I were to do inappropriate things with them? Maybe there's new babies coming into life. What if I were to somehow molest my child while I was changing their diaper? Or what if while walking down the stairs I were to throw them over the railing? As weird as that might sound to some people, there isn't a human being in the world who hasn't had an intrusive thought. In fact, I have treated so many people who are afraid of what if I were to push people downstairs, and I have stood on so many staircases with people behind me telling them to push me down the stairs, and it's never happened. But because of all the work that I've done in that, I can no longer take a staircase without contemplating the death of everyone on the staircase that I'm on. So I promise you, if you're ever on a staircase or an escalator with me, I will think about pushing you down the stairs. I don't think I will. I'm pretty good at not doing it, but the thought will be there, and maybe even the image of it, and quite possibly the urge to do it as well. But I'm not going to do it. I know that just because I have a thought or an image or an urge, it doesn't have to mean anything. And people with OCD, they know that too. Unless you're a children, because in the definition in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, it says it's okay for kids not to be as familiar with that. But once you get into like that teenage year and adult years, you logically know that this makes no sense. But you're consumed with two words. And those two words are what if, followed by the worst case scenario you can possibly think of. And then because you've thought of this worst case scenario and think that you could have some ability to follow through on that or do it, well, You feel very driven to do a compulsion to try to make sure that that thing doesn't happen. Because if it does happen, guess what? It's all your fault. That's what OCD will tell you. And so OCD says, hey, it's not that much time, it's not that much effort, it's not that much energy. Just do that compulsion and then everything will be okay. These are the lies told by OCD. And as people get older and don't get treatment, these lies get more and more entrenched. I have treated people who are almost 90 years old who have had OCD for over 75 years, who never once did anything good enough in 75 years to satisfy their OCD to the point where their OCD said, hey, 75 years of compulsions and research, congratulations, I'm going to go now. It doesn't work that way. So don't think that you're going to grow out of this. Don't wait for this to one day just be gone. Don't wait for the miracle to happen. Make the miracle happen, right? Do the thing that needs to happen in order for this to be better instead of hoping that that will just happen. You need to put the time and the energy and the effort into doing this. Depending on the stressors that occur throughout your life, well, OCD may jump into those, right? Again, having children, having grandchildren, switching jobs, buying homes, getting great opportunities sent to you to be able to take a fun vacation or maybe winning a raffle or something. No matter what thing happens, OCD is going to sour the milk of that experience. It is going to tell you how you've done something wrong or inappropriate and you need to do something to repent for that. And if you don't, what a terrible, awful person you are. Well, I'm here to tell you that there is treatment available, that help is there. You do not have to live with OCD in the driver's seat of your life for the rest of your life. You can kick it out of the driver's seat. You can throw it in the trunk. I wish I could say we've figured out a way that OCD will never bother you again. But we're not there yet. Maybe one day, but we aren't there yet. What I can do is instill some hope in you. Look at people with other conditions. All of our friends in the substance abuse community who get sober and live the rest of their lives without going back to drugs or alcohol. Well, we can do that in a very similar way with compulsions. We may have those obsessions there and urges to fulfill what OCD wants, but we just don't have to do it. We don't have to listen. And we can live our life the way we want it to be lived and not the way that OCD wants it to be lived. And there's a group of people out there who are trained in the most evidence-based treatments for this. It's called exposure and response prevention therapy. If you're looking for help, we've got you covered. Go to NOCD.com and we'll set you up with a therapist in your state who is licensed and well-trained in the use of exposure and response prevention therapy to be able to help you take those steps needed to get back the control that you would like of driving your life versus what OCD wants for you. I hope that helps.